we are going to look at the general ledger. So the last videos on general ledger, we didn't have the creditors control account because this is now our new account that we are working with. Because remember, now we no longer sell our trading stock on credit, but we also purchase on credit from our suppliers. And when we purchase without making immediate payment, we owe that supplier money and it then becomes a creditor. So this is a current liability. Okay, so it's a liability that I need to settle within the next few months. I cannot wait a few years. Righto, so we now have to do this in the general ledger. So you need to remember debt click or whatever it is that you are going to study to remember when to debit and when to credit. Sorry, I just want to get my ruler here. So you know that I prefer debt click, but you can use whatever works for you. So we're going to say that we have a debit side and we have a credit side. If something is a dead account, it's going to increase on the debit side, which means that its balance is also on the debit side. If it is a click account, it's going to increase on the credit side, which means that the balance is going to be on the credit side. So my dead accounts, so dead over there, those are my drawings, my expenses, my assets, and my debtors control. Okay, so remember debtors control, current asset, it just makes the word work. Okay, so debt click is click over here. Right, so we have debt, now we move on to click. Click accounts, we have our capital account, we have loans or liabilities, whatever you prefer there. Then we have our income accounts. And then we have our creditors control. And creditors control we know is a current liability. Okay, so this means that we now know where our balances and totals go. So unless stated otherwise in the question, your bank is an asset and assets are debt accounts, so debit side. Therefore, my balance brought down is on the debit side. So remember that your balance sheet section accounts, so your assets, owner's equity, and liability accounts must always start with an opening balance on the first day of the month that you brought down from the previous month. Then with my trading stock, it's the same thing. It's another asset. So balance brought down. And can you see I'm doing this without amounts, doing it without the actual proper date, because I will see that once I get to the activity. Okay, worst case scenarios, they tell me I actually had an unfavorable bank balance, therefore I can't be on the debit side, I need to be on the credit side. Then moving on to creditors control. So creditors control is a current liability, therefore the balance is on the credit side. So balance brought down. There we go. Then stationery is an asset, and assets increase on the debit side. Therefore, the total brought down is on the debit side. So remember, for your nominal accounts, your income and expense accounts, you don't have balances, you have totals because you're calculating your total profit or loss for the current financial year. Right. Packing materials is another expense. So on the first, total brought down, and that's it. Okay, so that's you starting to open your accounts. Your accounts will be open once you have your amounts with the full date there. But to get that, you need to go to the question. Okay, so in information 1, it says the balances below appear amongst others on the 1st of June 2022. So now you have your month and the year, so you can complete that. And then it says that it's on the 1st of June. You are doing the general ledger for the month of June because you had the following totals in your subsidiary journals. So in other words, these are the totals and the balances that you had on the 31st of May, 2022, that you are now starting with on the 1st of June, 2022. So you are doing it for June, therefore your date starts on the 1st of June. And this over here, they are saying that these are the balances. So for creditors control, 10,700. So I'm going to go to creditors control, 10,700 on the credit side. And I now know that this is for 2022, June the 1st. Okay. So that's my creditors control. Then I'm going to go to creditors control and I'm going to tick it off to say that I've now used that. Next up, I also had some trading stock that I started with. Hopefully I will sell that because it's a huge amount. So we'll go to trading stock. We'll say 2022, June the 1st, I had some trading stock purchased prior to June that I'm bringing down now with the amount 591,600 as per the information provided. And then I go back here and I say, done, I'm happy. Then I also had some stationery that I haven't, that I've purchased prior to June that I still have to include here, because remember, this will affect my total profit or loss. So 2022, June, or down from the previous month, 23,460 Rand that I've already spent on stationery. So there we go. And then the last one is my packing materials, 8,215 that I already purchased prior to June, 8,215 that I'm starting with. So ticking that off as well. Okay, so that's just opening your ledger accounts. Then the next part is, sorry, just want to get it all in. There we go. So the next part says that on the 30th of June, the following totals appeared in the various subsidiary journals. So subsidiary journals, remember CRJ, CPJ, DJ, CJ. Those are the journals that you can prepare by now. So we will give you some or all of those journals and you then need to post it. You need to remember that a transaction is your first step in your accounting cycle. Then once you have that, you are going to issue a source document. There we go, source document. Once you have your source document, you will then record that in your subsidiary journal. So first a transaction, then a source document, then a subsidiary journal. Then you're going to take your subsidiary journal and you are going to summarize that in your general ledger. So in your general ledger, you only want to see totals. Okay, you don't want to see all of these transactions again, because if you want to see all of these transactions, you will go to your subsidiary journal. So that's why we only give you totals like this. So it means that in the CPJ, you made payments. If I make payments, it means that I have less money, and money is bank account. Because remember, you're working with your wallet here, the business's wallet. So you had a lot of money in that wallet, and then the total that you paid for June was the amount that you see in bank over there. So in other words, if I'm looking at my bank account in my general ledger, they didn't even give me an opening balance. Sorry, let me just add a 0 there. They didn't give a balance. There we go. Excuse me. Let me just drink some water real quick. Sorry. Okay. Right. So they didn't give me a balance, but it's fine because we will just work with whatever information they gave us now. So you are not going to stress. You're just going to use what you have. Okay. So they are saying that you had some money. Let's just assume we did have some money, but you had some money here. And you have now used, during this month of June, you have used some of that money. So if your bank increases on the debit side, it means that it decreases on the credit side. And if you use money from your wallet, then obviously you have less money in your wallet. So you need to credit the account. So because we are posting totals, we have to wait until the last day to see. Therefore, 2022, June the 30th, you had to wait until the last day to see what you had as total payments. So details gets total payments. Where did you get this information from? You got it from your CPJ. So folio is my reference. And then amount is the total for that bank column in the CPJ. It's the total amount that you paid, right? There we go. Then comes, what did I pay for? First of all, I paid for trading stock purchases. I paid some of my creditors, and then I paid some other random things. So for the accounts that you have a column for in your CPJ, meaning that the account is listed separately, not in sundry, it means that you had to wait until the last day to see in total how much you paid for each one of these. Therefore, when I now post the 71,400 of trading stock to my ledger, I need to do it on the last day of the month. Okay, so if I paid for trading stock, if you pay for anything, you now have more of that thing. Because remember, you can't pay for something and now suddenly you have less thereof. Okay, so trading stock, if I paid for a suite, I have to get the suite. You can't keep the suite if I've now paid for that. So trading stock asset, you had to wait until the last day to see how much you paid, therefore details, bank. Remember, that's how we refer to it. If it's paid, it's bank. If it's received, it's bank. Then I paid for it, therefore I will see it in the CPJ. The amount that I saw for trading stock in the CPJ was 71,400 that I now have more of. Okay, so that's part of the payment of the total there in bank. But that's not it. I also paid my creditors. So this is now it's going to sound weird because I literally just said you can't have less of something if you've paid for it. But when you can have less of something when you've paid for it is when you owe someone. Okay, so if I owed you money at the beginning of the month and I'm now paying that money, I obviously owe you less money. Okay, so that's why when it comes to creditors, if it's in the CPJ, it means that we now owe this creditor less money and liabilities decrease on the debit side. So 2022 June, it has a column. You had to wait until the last day to see how much you paid, therefore details bank, as recorded in the CPJ, because that's where we record our payments. The amount was 96,900 that I no longer owe to my creditors as per my total there. Okay, then next up, sundry accounts. So in other words, you also paid for a bunch of other things. And included in those other things were the following. On the 21st of June, stationery was bought and paid for with an EFT 12,750. So you paid for stationery, therefore you now have more stationery. This is in the sundry account, therefore you have to post it on the day that the transaction occurred. You made payment, therefore bank is your details. You recorded this transaction in your CPJ, and the amount was 12,750 as per your sundry account. So there we go, 12,750. They didn't give you the information for the remaining amounts, so we won't post the rest. We are done with CPJ. Then moving on to the creditors journal. So creditors journal says that I purchased without making payment immediately. I made payment at a later stage. That's included in the CPJ payments. But creditors journal is all new purchases not paid for. So these are all the things that I've purchased. And all of these things added up to what I owe my creditors in the end. So if you see a question mark, you're literally just going to take the total that you have there for your creditors, 162,537, minus the amounts that you do know, so the known amounts, minus 18,360, to find the difference, and that is then your missing figure. Because all of your credit purchases must add up to what you say that you are that you have to pay to your creditors. In other words, what you owe your creditors, because these are the things that you purchased from them in June. Okay, so now we start posting. In total, we owe our creditors that amount for purchases. So we must go to creditors control. We had to wait until the last day to see what we owe our creditors. Why do we owe our creditors? We owe them because we purchased many different things from them without making immediate payment. So we had sundry purchases, sundry meaning a lot of different things. Purchases, sorry, sundry purchases, very small there, as recorded in the CJ, and the total amount 162,537. Okay, there we go. So remember, you don't have to squeeze it in like this. You can do wrap text, meaning you can write it like, we'll see now, like that as well. Okay, so that's fine. You don't have to do it my way. Okay, so it just means that I owe my creditors more. That's why I'm crediting my creditors control, because of many different purchases made as seen in my CJ for the total of that amount. What did I purchase without making immediate payment? I purchased some trading stock. So I need to go to trading stock, and I need to show that it's now increasing. The reason being I owe my creditors more money, therefore creditors control. As I've recorded in my CJ, the amount of 78,642 Rand. Okay, so my trading stock, I started with some stock, I purchased and paid for some stock, and I purchased some stock without making immediate payment. Those are the different transactions there in your trading stock account. You also purchase stationery without making immediate payment. Sorry, this now looks like I'm saying the total is 11. I'm saying stationery is 11,000. Okay, so I'm going to go to stationery, and I'm going to say that I have a column for it now in the CJ, so I had to wait until the last day. And now wait, let me rather do it here. Something's up with this stationery account here. That row is not working. And it's creditors control because I didn't make immediate payment. As recorded in my CJ, the total as per the CJ, I don't have to now recalculate anything, creditors control. And that's it. I also paid for some packing materials without making immediate payment. So I have more packing materials. Once again, I do have a column. It was not in sundry. And it's creditors control because I didn't make immediate payment. So creditors control, as recorded in the CJ, 18,360 Rand. Okay, there we go. Then there's also sundry, but they didn't give us any details. So we can't post sundry anywhere because we need to actually know what is included in sundry for us to be able to post it. So that means that we are done. Now, very important, for your nominal section accounts, whether it's income or expense accounts, you only draw one line when you total, only one line, not another line here below, because that means balancing. You are only totaling the accounts, so one line there. So then you just add your totals. That's nice and easy. So 26, 575. There we go. Do the same for our stationery. Just adding all of the amounts, nothing strange going on here. 47,481. And then when you get to your balance sheet section accounts, you'll see that here we already have double lines, but because we are skipping quite a few lines, I'm going to draw double lines here. Okay, so I'm just going to ignore the ones there at the bottom. So I want mine to look nice. Okay, so after the last transaction, I draw my 2 lines on both sides because I'm making them equal, balancing them, which means that I must now make it equal because currently it isn't, because we have credit side amount and we have a debit side amount, but these 2 sides must have the same total. So you're going to take the one with the bigger total, and it's clear to see that it's a credit side. So I'm adding everything on the credit side to get the total, and I'm writing the total in. Then I'm writing that exact same total on the credit side to make the 2 sides equal. In other words, I almost wrote the wrong amount. In other words, to balance the accounts. Now it's the same. However, it's clear to see that debit side isn't equal to this total. So I'll find the difference between what I have and what I'm saying the total is. And I write the difference in there. And that is my new balance. It's my balance carry down. So carry down that I will take with me into the new month on the first day of July as my balance brought down. Okay, so what is this account now saying? It's saying that I started off by owing my creditors some money. Then I purchased without making immediate payment during the month. That's the total of my purchases. So the total that I owed my creditors this month added up to that. However, of that amount, I then paid 96,900, which means that I don't owe them that full amount. I owe them that less the payment that I've made. So this is the outstanding balance that I then have to pay in the next month. So brought down. That's it. For the other 2, I'm not going to balance now because we don't have the cost of sales. We don't have the total receipts. So it's just going to look weird. But that's just an idea of how to now post your creditors control to your ledger accounts as well.